I'm here at the Southern African Railway Association's 11th annual conference and exhibition. I'm standing here with the Minister from Zambia, Minister of Transport and Logistics. So you've just given a presentation. You mentioned quite a few interesting things. You've got some Greenfield projects happening, so let's touch on that first.
Yeah. Well, basically, I think when you talk about the Greenfield projects that I referred to in my presentation, this is all aimed at enhancing that connectivity to our neighboring countries. So we've got, a Greenfield project at Nseluka all the way to Mpulungu, which then gives us access to the Great Lakes region, Kafue, which connects into Lion's Den in Zimbabwe. That, then gives us a kind of like shortest route into the port of Beira. We've also got Livingstone into Sesheke, as well as Livingstone to Kazungula, connecting to Botswana at Motsetsi. So we have basically come to the realization we do need to make strides to open up and interconnect our continent in order for us to be able to achieve the Africa Free Trade Area, which is very, very important in order for us to explore the markets within ourselves before we can even look beyond the continent. And so this is what I highlighted in my presentation. I'm happy that there appears to be consensus building amongst us, the African countries, particularly in SADC. And my president, President Hakainde Hichilema, I think has been a champion. You will recall that not long ago, this year, when he addressed the European Parliament, I think that he was able to basically request that those that have the financing, like the EU, have this fund where they're looking to promoting regional projects. And so my president thought that this is the sort of project which we ought to try and promote as a region in order to get uniformity, not only in technology, but also in terms of the standard of the trains, so that we are able to get a train running all the way from Zambia, crossing into Zimbabwe, up to the port of Durban in South Africa. And that means that we may have to look into standardizing the type of rail that we're operating. As you're well aware, most of our rail infrastructure is pretty much getting obsolete because this is the Cecil Rhodes Cape Gauge standard kind of rail, which we have kept on using for close to over 100 years now. It's become obsolete.
I heard you advocating for standard gauge
Absolutely.
railway. Okay.
Standard gauge will give us an opportunity to basically electrify the lines, which then also invariably does impact on our carbon emission reductions,
Yes.
which is very important in terms of saving the planet.
In the conference, you were talking about the carbon emissions and you were talking about manufacturing and you were talking about hydrogen and battery and you mentioned something about setting up a manufacturing plant. What was that about?
Again, I want to say that being a new administration, we have a president that has been quite visionary in terms of looking at which direction the world is moving in terms of, the zero target in terms of emissions. We have the Western world essentially going green in terms of fuels. And so we foresee a situation in the not too distant future that we're going to have not only electric motor vehicles, but also electric trains. Now, Zambia and the DRC have had this blessing of a deposit of, copper and cobalt. About 70% of all world deposits are sitting in Zambia and the DRC. And rather than just look at exportation of raw materials, we are also now, insisting that we must value add to these raw materials. So we have basically gone into a memorandum of understanding where the DRC and Zambia can set up a joint battery manufacturing process that hopefully will be situated in Zambia. This then allows us to answer to the call to be able to supply batteries not only in the region, but also, I guess, to the rest of the world.
How are you doing with the passenger transport perspective? Yeah, electrified lines, signalling, bringing in the passenger rail. Are you looking at high speed?
I think,
Anything exciting in terms
yeah,
of hydrogen?
obviously, as you are fully aware, rail transportation is one of the cheapest modes of transport.
It is.
And a bulk of our citizens are in the rural areas and are fairly, humble in terms of the economic stratus. And so, because of the inefficiency that has gripped the railway subsector, you find that the passenger volumes have obviously drastically reduced because it takes a couple of days, just to cover, for instance, between the Copper Belt in Dola, where I come from, to Lusaka, which is only 320 kilometers. But this will take a train a whole day.
Yes.
And so it is really less attractive. Okay? And so we hope that in future, as we look to investing, bringing in the private sector on board and revamping this rail subsector, we should be able to improve on the efficiency in terms of speeds and safety, and that will invariably then bring in the numbers, because this is a mode of transportation that citizens will normally, because of cost factors, will normally tend to use. But also, I think that our vision is to open up the country, particularly to those areas that are involved in agricultural production. That also helps us bring in the produce to the markets.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is very important. It's a subsector that we cannot run away from. But above all, it will also enable us to protect the road infrastructure. As you are well aware, the road transport sector, particularly through trucking, does take up close to over 90% of all volumes in terms of freight.
New rolling stock, have you got new trains coming?
We are in talks because, as you may be aware, we are coming and inheriting an economy that was pretty damaged in terms of the levels of indebtedness. So we have been lucky that the government has put in stringent, prudent measures to look after, public coffers, and because of that, we've basically also managed to bring in budget credibility, which then has caused the international community to basically look at us with a bit of favor. And I think that we have more of our creditors ready to come and assist in restructuring Zambia's debt, and also having gotten that IMF package that will help us in our balance of payment support. So these are all measures that have been put in place to try and open up the ability, the capacity, the potential for the country then to be able to spend in infrastructure. So we are weighing all the options, obviously, trying by all means to avoid falling into the debt trap once again. So it's pretty much a delicate balance that we have to strike. Yeah, but so far so good. We're hopeful. We've got people that are definitely interested in investing in the rail subsector. But then again, the financing models are very crucial to see that indeed what we do get is a win-win situation. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Minister, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much for having me.
As you go forward, and I will try and pop in next year and see the progress you've been making.
I look forward. You'll be most welcome.